the importance of trade and in the process, the importance of shipping to a growing economy. Our maritime tradition runs unbroken from the dockyards of Lothal through the Chola fleets that sailed to Southeast Asia and to the Maratha Navy that defended our coast. Whenever India's maritime strength has risen, both the nation and the world have gained and prospered. Today, that spirit guides our march towards a Viksit Bharat, where the seas once again become engines of growth, innovation and employment. Energy and shipping are inseparable pillars of our economy. But before I go to the shipping part, let me share with you some thoughts on the energy front. Today we consume on an average, I think something around 5.6 million barrels of crude in a day. When I had the privilege of being associated with the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, I think about 4.5 years ago, we were consuming 5 million barrels per day. And the rate at which we are growing, I think we will be consuming 6 million barrels of crude oil every day. The International Energy Agency, which is situated in Paris, had forecast, and that was a statistic I used to use, that in the coming 2 decades, 25% of the increase in global demand of energy will come from India. I was attending a meeting in Hyderabad yesterday, and when I saw my speaking notes, and I cross-checked those figures before coming in front of an audience like this, the figure said that in the coming 2 decades, 30% of the global increase in demand will come from India. And now I come to the shipping part of it. In fiscal year 2024-25, India imported around 300 million metric tons of crude and petroleum products and exported 65 million metric tons. The oil and gas sector alone accounts for nearly 28% of India's total trade by volume, making it the single largest commodity group of our ports. Now here I want to inject a personal story. I served for 39 long years in India's diplomatic service. My last assignment before I superannuated was permanent representative and ambassador of India to the United Nations in New York. When I retired in March 2013, 12 and a half years ago, I had an offer of employment with an international, prestigious international think tank, and my wife was then serving as an Assistant Secretary General in the UN. So somebody told me that, why don't you acquire an apartment here? And I said, no, I don't have the money and I don't know how long I'm going to live here. But just to explain the economics, which is, I think, the economics behind shipbuilding also, I ended up staying another few years. I came back when the Prime Minister invited me to join his team in 2017, but my wife stayed on a little longer than that. And I calculated, instead of paying rent for those 5 years, if we had acquired an apartment, the rent would have been more than the mortgage payment. So this is something about shipbuilding. I tell my colleagues, and I have some very interesting figures to show you. And out of this entire trade, which is carried by, bulk carriers, only 20% of this cargo is carried on India-flagged or India-owned vessels. A challenge which is now turning into an opportunity. India's demand for crude oil, LPG, LNG and ethane is rising rapidly, with ONGC projected to require nearly 100 offshore service and platform vessels by 2034, and that's not very far off. India meets nearly 88% of its crude and 51% of the gas requirements through imports. That again brings in a sharp focus on the context of why we need to build more ships. In fiscal year 2024-25, our crude import bill crossed 150 billion US dollars, reflecting the size and enormity of that figure. Freight charges form a sizable part of the landed cost. Our PSUs, public sector units, pay about US $5 per barrel when sourcing crude from the United States, and around 1.2 US dollars per barrel from the Middle East, roughly 10% and 2% of the total cost. For gas, freight averages 5% from the Middle East and go up to 15% from the United States. The case for asset creation is staring us in the face. If we total the annual amount spent by our PSUs on chartering ships, the figure over just 5 years is a total of around US $8 billion for IOCL, BPCL and HPCL. These are the three companies, and I have the distinguished CMD of IOCL sitting right next to me, and I was whispering this into his ears. If you look at his profits in the last quarter, he's a modest man, so he'll not try to show it, but they just went up by 3,000 or 4,000 crores in one quarter, profit after tax. This $8 billion that these three companies spent on chartering could be enough to purchase a new fleet of crude oil tankers, a clear case for building long-term strategic assets. And I believe that is an amplification of my personal story with paying rents rather than acquiring and mortgage payments. Today, oil marketing companies primarily use VLCCs, Suezmax and Aframax vessels for crude imports, with about 70 ships currently on time charter across the three OMCs and GAIL. This highlights both the scale of operations and the opportunity to reduce recurring costs through ownership. To capture this opportunity, I can share with you what we are doing, and I think the case for doing other things becomes obvious. We are aggregating PSU cargo demand to ensure long-term charters for Indian carriers, advancing the ship owning and leasing entity SOL model to boost domestic ownership, establishing a maritime development fund for affordable long-tenor vessel finance, launching shipbuilding financial assistance policy 2.0 with enhanced grants for LNG, ethane and product tankers. Under the visionary leadership of Prime Minister Modi, India's maritime sector has undergone unprecedented transformation in the last 11 years. Before the Modi era, port capacity, after that, port capacity is doubled from 872 million metric tons per annum in 2014 to 1,681 million metric tons per annum today. Cargo volumes have surged from 581 million tons to approximately 855 million tons, reflecting a CAGR for 4%. Output per ship berth day, OSBD, rose from 12,458 tons to 18,304 tons over the last 10 years. Average turnaround time improved by 48% from 96 hours in fiscal year 2014-15 to 49.5 hours in fiscal year 24-25. Idle time dropped by nearly 29% from 23.1% to 16.3%. The Sagarmala program has already mobilized over 5.5 lakh crores in projects that modernize ports, connect hinterlands, and energize coastal districts. India now supplies 12% of the world's seafarers, reflecting our unmatched maritime human capital growth. Again, sharing from a personal experience, during a long career as a civil servant, I served for 3 years on deputation to the Ministry of Defence. And one of my first assignments there was Joint Secretary for the Navy. And it was then that I understood that you required not only shipbuilding, and the government has shipyards, that you required to very carefully nurture and augment that capacity. Not every shipyard can build every kind of vessels. In fact, when it came to building a aircraft carrier, it was just one shipyard which could qualify, Cochin Shipyard. And I remember the long negotiations we used to have with them. Equally, when it comes to building submarines, there's only one shipyard, I think, the one here, Mazagon Docks. But there is another issue involved. Once you build a capacity, you invest not only in infrastructure, but you also invest in the people who are going to man and who are going to build those ships. Then if there are no orders on the shipyards, the workforce retires or goes away. So I remember one of the things that I used to agonize about along with my colleagues is to how to make sure that you build the infrastructure will last, but unless you place repeated orders on the shipyards, it's not going to work. And now you come to another very interesting situation, which is one that I'm grappling with now. Now suddenly our energy sector is looking for vessels, and if you look around the world, there are 2 or 3 countries which have that capacity. And if you talk to them, their order books are filled for the next 6 years. So I think the most sensible course of action would be for us to tell them to come here and invest. Maybe the first few vessels can be built in wherever, in Japan, Korea, or elsewhere. And then you start production here. But all this is work which requires perspective planning, not for today and tomorrow, but for 10, 15, 20 years. And I think a discussion of this kind in a premier event like the India Maritime Week will help focus on that. And I see some of my friends sitting here from countries which I think have very effective ship producing yards. Believe me, ship production was earlier, according to my understanding, dispersed amongst a number of countries. Today it's not that. Today many countries which were shipbuilders have stopped, whereas the shipbuilding is continuing. But even those countries which have very robust shipbuilding industry, I think you need to look at partners like India, where the demand for haulage and carriage, or whatever the term is going to persist over a period of time.